So a couple of announcements. There is room now in the Aravaipa retreat if anyone suddenly has uh, a great inspiration and urge to come to Aravaipa Canyon outside of Tucson, Arizona. It's an amazing place to practice, and it will be our last time there. Uh, Everyday Zen Sesshin is coming up, and that information will come out soon, and we'll share that with you. Longer sits are really important. Uh, February 25th, we're doing a half-day sit, and in the morning and in the afternoon will be our Sangha meeting. We'll all be together, hybrid and in person, and those who can't be there in person will be online. And this coming Tuesday, unless the roads are flooded and we're all going under, we'll just wear snorkels to come to Sangha. No, sorry. If everything goes as planned, we'll be there on Tuesday doing hybrid, and we'll do the full moon ceremony as our monthly Tuesday service, which seems like an appropriate response. Did we do the before lecture chant? We did, didn't we? Yeah, okay, thank you. Thanks. I need all the help I can get. um, so working with the Buddha's teachings on social and communal harmony, I want to say a little bit about the early Pali teachings and Mahayana tradition, which is what Zen is, and it's all the same root, and it's all Buddha. Um, I had fun. I hope maybe some of you had fun on Tuesday with, we're on the chapter about for your own good, for one's own good and the good of others. And Buddha begins with language that you wouldn't so much find in Zen, talking about good people and bad people and foolish people and wise people. And it's much more, one might say, dualistic language. Zen, Mahayana tradition, the Bodhisattva ideal, doesn't do that uh, so much. When I first started sitting at San Francisco Zen Center a good long while ago, we hardly even ever talked about the precepts. I think a lot of us didn't back then because we were all trying to get free from old constraints and mostly I think we were young and arrogant, and then like we didn't need these things, and then what a surprise, there were crises and scandals that happened. Inappropriate behavior, sexual behavior, most men teachers with women students. And uh, so lo and behold, I think we got a little more humble. Maybe we did need a little guidance. And how could we do this not in a moralistic way and not setting one thing up against the other, but of going back to the precepts and the full moon ceremony. So let me just, the Tripitaka, early Theravadan Buddhism, was monastic, and lay people were in support of the monastics. And the teachings, especially the Tripitaka, is the triple basket, is the traditional term for the ancient collections of sacred Buddhist texts, sacred Pali texts. And it has, I actually saw them in Sri Lanka, one of the original copies. Uh, Three main categories. The Sutra Pitaka, which I'm guessing is a lot of what Bhikkhu Bodhi is offering us here, the Vinaya Pitaka and the Abhidharma Pitaka. Some people study the Abhidharma. Maybe we'll do it sometime. I just have to say that my brain has such a hard time tracking some of these things. It's why I love Zen so much. But the Vinaya is called the basket of discipline because it was the rules and the precepts for fully ordained monks and nuns. The monks and nuns were supposed to do it for all of us, and then us lay people were in support of them. and gave dana and food, and the whole system was set up that way because it was cultural and it was in that time, and it still happens in Theravadan countries. I tried to find, and I think this is accurate. Uh, the rules for fully ordained monks were 227 rules, are. The nuns 311. Had to keep control of those wild, unruly nuns so that the monks could stay pure. Sorry, that was just my little. And the full moon ceremony was done every month in the monasteries as a way for people to do repentance. And my understanding is that people really confessed. You know, it's like, I heard so and so monk over there, and can you forgive me? And there was that kind of conversation. And then the whole sangha would do the ceremony together as a way to be able to go on with peace and harmony. So this ancient full moon ceremony that we do some version of, it's very elaborate if you do it at San Francisco Zen Center, uh, is passed to us from this time, and I think more than appropriate, because Mahayana Buddhism then arose as a kind of, I suppose you could say, a reformation. You know, in Christianity, it's like it goes a little too far this way, and then something else arises, and then so Mahayana kind of said, maybe we're getting a little too moralistic here. I didn't really say that, but that's what I'm saying. Uh, and the Bodhisattva vow is that everyone is here. Monastic, lay people, the whole world, everybody is waking up together, and we're all here to help each other. So it began to break down that early divide that arose out of a culture and a time. So when the Buddha in this chapter that we're working with says good people, bad people, wise people, foolish people, which I was actually sort of appreciating because we never do that, is without moralism or judgment, is maybe it's helpful. I think we were skipping a little bit in the beginning as young Zen Buddhists, is there is behavior that causes harm. And we do enact and do things in body, speech, and mind that are foolish. So how can we notice and study that without putting something extra on top of that? So what I wanted to do today is read you a little bit more from this chapter. Buddha goes on in the way Bhikkhu Bodhi has this organized, is to say, to bring us back to the basic ground, greed, hate, and delusion. That's what it all arises from. Which sounds, yeah, greed, hate, and delusion. But pay attention. There's just incredible wisdom. Hatred is to separate and push things away, to go away from. Greed is to pull things towards us. I need it, I want it. And delusion is just a confused view of the world, which is to know that we're separate and that my welfare isn't tied up in your welfare. So the Buddha then says, there are 4 kinds of persons in the world. Monks, there are 4 kinds of persons found existing in the world. What for? One who is practicing neither for their own welfare or for the welfare of others. It's like, who knows why you're doing it, but you're not doing it to be helpful. One who is practicing for the welfare of others, but not for yourself. It's like, here, let me help you, but you're the problem over there. This is just my shorthand. You can find your own. One who is practicing for their own welfare, but not for the welfare of others. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to get purified, and I'm sorry that you're in the mud, but if I wake up, then somehow that's, well, no, you don't, the whole thing is very self-centered, one could say. And 4, one who is practicing both for their own welfare and for the welfare of others, who knows in the essential way that as you practice for yourself, you are also practicing for everyone else. How do you do this? You wake up in the removal of lust, hatred, and delusion. There are 5 training rules. In our tradition, that I think came directly from Dogen, the 16 Bodhisattva precepts, the Theravadan and Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition has 5. And they are abstaining from the destruction of life, or do not to kill, taking what is not given, not to steal, sexual misconduct. A lot of the early ones were because male monks were, and nuns had a lot to do with probably young people with a lot of sexual energy who went into these traditions often because there was aspiration and a deep spiritual yearning, and sometimes because there wasn't any other choice. It was the way that you could find some freedom from your family and the constraints of the expectations of you as a man or a woman in a particular culture. Training about speech and training about intoxicants. Don't intoxicate yourself. Alcohol, it's expanded to with doctrines, and so all of these have been filled out beautifully in Thich Nhat Hanh's and in many of the precepts as we study them and take them. All of this is done, if you're wise, knowing it's for yourself and it's for all beings. Then there's another little subheading here that's divided into monks and lay followers, because during that time there were different expectations. The monk: practice virtuous behavior, concentration, become accomplished in wisdom, and practice liberation for yourself, which is a way to help everybody. If you woke up, it was the path of the Arhat. For a lay follower, this is what you become accomplished in and encourage others. In faith, so it would be faith in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and faith in the monks, which is why, in the nuns, but mostly the monks, which is why the monks were expected to behave really impeccably. Becoming accomplished in virtuous behavior, to become a good person, to practice generosity, to encourage the monks, to support the monks, because they were the ones who were really practicing, and that was the job of lay people. To want to hear the Dharma, which is, of course, what the monks preached, to retain and examine the teachings, like to take it into your life, and then to practice in accordance with the Dharma. And finally, the person of great wisdom, which is a monk, a monastic, who doesn't intend affliction for oneself or others, and plans for and wakes up for the goodness of themselves to become wise, to practice for the welfare of others and the welfare of the whole world. Lots of good wisdom in here. So now I had a lot of fun looking at current era teachers, and I think I'll have time, we'll see, to bring forward from Mel Weissman's new book, which is wonderful. Not his, but it's a compilation because he died a couple of years ago, and from Blanche Hartman, who's also in our lineage. We'll see. But I think this completely builds on these teachings of the Buddha, and brings it into our current era. This particular chapter from Mel Weissman's book, Sojin's book, is called Difficult Encounters. Suzuki Roshi used to say that each of us is half good and half bad. Already is really different, isn't it? No matter how righteous we feel, we have to reflect on this, he did not exclude himself. First, I want to suggest that Suzuki Roshi was not infallible and that he had faults. You know how important this is? Don't deify. We're all human beings. We should be careful not to deify Suzuki Roshi. I don't think he would feel good about that. Don't put anyone's head on top of your own. Suzuki Roshi was always working on his shortcomings, and we didn't see them as faults. We saw them as his practice. I think it was because he could see his own faults so clearly that he was empathetic with us. There were times when Suzuki Roshi was angry, and he showed it. But he said that when he was angry, he would express it to make a point, but that he was not attached to anger. I am just giving you something to work with, he'd say. I'd add, I think Mel is being a little idealistic here. I think Suzuki Roshi was angry and probably did some harm in his own family. Just keep looking. We're all human beings. Mel goes on. Loving kindness, sympathetic joy, compassion, and equanimity are aspects of love free from self-interest. They express the Buddhist temperament, and Suzuki Roshi embodied them, I would add, as best he could and as his deepest intention. He worked with the most difficult people. Really difficult people came to San Francisco Zen Center in the 60s and 70s. And Suzuki Roshi just welcomed them. And not only that, ordained them and put great faith in them. And he did it not by rejecting or criticizing, but by understanding something about their problems and addressing them as Buddha and exercising enormous patience. There it is again, patience, folks. Patience. Big time practice. He was not always successful, but the truth of his humble way continues to have a positive effect in the world today. From time to time, we have encounters, difficult encounters with people. There's a whole other chapter we're coming up in a couple weeks about disputes and resolving disputes in the Buddha's words, but this will get us ready for it. From time to time, we have difficult encounters with people, both inside and outside the Sangha. Finding a middle ground between affirmation of the person and acknowledging your differences is a wonderful practice opportunity for a Zen student. Practice involves using skillful means instead of reactivity. Whew. Study reactivity. So fast. It's like, oh, there's my ancient twisted karma. There's human ancient twisted karma, and this is how it's coming. Greed, hate, and delusion, reactivity, study it. It'll teach you right on the spot how we create more karma. Reactivity brings forth defensiveness in another person, which muddies the water. We can also study our own defensiveness, which is another kind of reactivity. And then it goes back and forth and it bounces all around. And gee, what a surprise. Nobody ends up happy. Without denying our emotions and feelings, how can we rise to a place of equanimity where the solutions become obvious to everyone without carrying any defensive baggage at the bottom of the heart? We do this for our own good and for the good of others, each moment. Someone said to me, I don't feel loved, but I realize that if I love everyone, I will be loved in return. The vow to awaken with all beings must be more than just lip service. Dogen called it continuous practice. Very wise man, Dogen, carrying forward these ancient Pali Theravadan teachings and lighting the way in a way that doesn't ignore anything, but that includes everything. So we get to be full, true human beings and study the self so that we can more and more wake up for our own good, meaning to stop the karmic wheel as best we can in this lifetime, to wake up and transform it, and to help everybody around us. Okay, so here's from Blanche. So Suzuki Roshi wasn't able to transmit Mel Huitsu. This is all lineage. Huitsu, Suzuki Roshi's son, transmitted Mel, gave him the seal to be able to teach. Mel transmitted Blanche Hartman. She was the first abbess of San Francisco Zen Center. Wonderful little book of teachings from her. She was deeply loved. Blanche really had grandmotherly mind. Blanche was abbess and rose to be a very respected teacher. And then when it was time for her to retire, she just stayed on at Zen Center and basically just hung out in the kitchen and the halls and was just kind to people. Very humble human being. This chapter is, our practice is to help people. In the Zendo, everyone can come and practice our way. Experienced students and also those who don't know anything about Zen. So again, we are not in a culture where the monastics and lay is divided. We do sometimes close practice periods at Tassajara, Everyday Zen, where you make a commitment. It's kind of a monastic commitment for a period of time, but then you always are going back out into your everyday life. Here, basically, like at Dharma Heart Zen, everyone is welcome. I love it when people wander in who say, I knew Suzuki Roshi and I've been practicing, it's like people have been practicing. We have people in the Sangha who have been practicing for a very, very long time. Knew Trudy Dixon. And I love it when people stumble in and say, what's going on here? And I just sort of, I don't know, I found this and then this happened and then that happened and I'm just here and I don't know, what are you doing? And then they ask really good questions and they stay, and sometimes they don't stay. But that's what's so beautiful, is that the door is completely open. New students will have difficulty that they never could have imagined. Old students have a double duty to do their own practice and to encourage those who have just come without yelling at them. There are, and maybe some of you have experienced, often, not often, but sometimes people who run the Zendos take their jobs very, very seriously and are trying really hard to get everybody to do the right thing, and sometimes forget kindness, although I'm sure when they do it, their intention is to be kind. Without telling them you should do this or you should do that, the old students should lead new students so that they can practice our way more easily. It's like, oh, hi, welcome. Here's the cushion. Here's what we do. Gently, kindly. Even though newer students don't know what Buddhism is, they will naturally have a good feeling when they come to a beautiful Buddha hall. That is the ornament of a Zen center. But for Zen Buddhists especially, the true ornament of the Buddha hall is the people who are practicing there. We don't have a fancy Zendo. We have a beautiful little place at the church, and we have a little beautiful place at Open Sky, but the most beautiful thing is all of you and the deep heart of practice. Each one of us should be a beautiful flower, and each one of us should be a Buddha leading people in our practice. So we're practicing for our own good and for the good of others. Whatever we do, we are considering how to do this. Since there are no special rules for how to treat things, how to be friendly with others, we keep studying what will help people practice together. That's our job. What will help people practice together? In a particular way, in our Sangha, how do we welcome people? How do we help each other practice? How do we let people know that everyone is welcome? And then how do we live it in our life so that people may never know that you're a Buddhist, or Erica's doing some great adventuring into churches and prisons and just kind of sharing she's a Buddhist, but mostly just trusting if she shows up as a human being that will help people. That's our job. How do we live it? We keep studying what will help people practice together. If you don't forget this point, you will find out how to treat people, how to treat things, and how to treat yourself. It's exactly the same thing the Buddha is, for the good of yourself and for the good of others. This is what we call the Bodhisattva way. Our practice is to help people, and to help people, we find out how to practice our way in each moment. To stop our thinking and to be free from emotional activity when we sit is not just a matter of concentration. It is to rely completely on ourselves to find absolute refuge in our practice. It's what we'll do when we do the full moon ceremony. We begin with confession, then we call on the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to help us, and then we take refuge. We are just like a baby who is in the lap of its mother. I think we have a very good spirit in the Zendo I practice in. I think that too. I am rather amazed at the spirit. Me too. But the next question is how to extend this spirit to your everyday life. You do it by respecting things and respecting each other. Because when we respect things, we will find our true life. Respect things. We perceive things exist separate from that, but when you take care of what's in front of you, it is taking care of the whole world. When we respect plants, we will find their real life, the power and beauty of the flowers. Though love is important, if it is separated from respect and sincerity, it will not work. With big mind and with pure sincerity and respect, love can really be love. Don't we have great teachers? And I knew Blanche. She was completely a human being. I knew Blanche. And Blanche sat ferociously and practiced deeply and practiced kindness. And she inspired a lot of people because of that. In the same way, each one of you, when you sit and you practice and you show up, we encourage each other. That's what we do. And we do it in the grocery store line, and we do it in our cars, and we do it in our homes. It's for the good of ourselves and for the good of others. So I'm going to put you in groups. You can talk about whatever you want. But we could use this last jump off line. With big mind and pure sincerity and respect, love can really be love. Suzuki Roshi talks about small mind and big mind. What's big mind mean to you? What is sincerity and respect? And what does this have to do with love? We can say these things, but living it